With Liquor Barn, you can shop your favorite bourbon, that perfect bottle of wine, or discover something new. To place an order for pickup or delivery, download the Liquor Barn app, visit liquorbarn.com, or call your nearest Liquor Barn location. Follow us on social media and subscribe to our email list for all the latest news on products, promotions, and events. Liquor Barn, where Kentuckians go to celebrate life. Cheers!
Welcome to the Bourbon Life Podcast, your source for all things bourbon. Join your hosts, Mark and Matt, as they drink and review bourbons, share news about upcoming events, interview the who's who in the bourbon world, and, most importantly, bring you along for the fun of living the bourbon life. Now, here's your hosts, Mark and Matt.
All right, everybody, welcome back for another episode of the Bourbon Life Podcast. I'm your host, Mark, and we are recording in person tonight, live, as I used to say, in the Bourbon Life Studios.
Used to say, just did say.
I just say,
yeah,
live in the Bourbon Life Studios with my good friend Matt wearing his beanie. Matt, when you walked through the front door tonight and I saw the beanie, I was like, man, I'm so happy to see that. Man.
It's winter.
It is winter.
Yeah, and all of a sudden, it is winter after.
Yeah, no doubt about it, man.
Nice long extended autumn.
Yeah,
we're getting the weather now.
Yeah, we are with a vengeance here in Central Kentucky.
Talk about vengeance! That hailstorm last night,
was that crazy?
Oh my gosh,
was that nuts? Oh man, well, I was down in Bardstown, and it was like all of a sudden, just like I heard this noise, and I'm like, I'm having dinner, and I'm like, wait a second, and I look out the window, and I'm like, yep, that's hail, and it's like marble size hail.
Yeah,
and then there was a break, so I need to head back to Lexington. So I managed to like get in between the storms, but I texted my wife, and I'm like, you need to prepare because this thing was moving. I looked at my, because I used to be a storm tracker, which is crazy. I love to chase
storm
storms.
chaser.
I was. I really was. So I've got all these little gadgets and things on my phone. So I'm looking at this app, and that storm was moving at 66 knots, which is like 72 miles an hour.
Wow.
I mean, it was crazy. And there was so much pink. And when you see pink in a storm, you know it's hail. And if it's black, you might as well just bend over and kiss your ass goodbye.
You're gone.
If you see black. Yeah. So there was a ton of pink. So I was like, look, I texted her. I'm like, you need to, take cover, hide the cats, whatever, man, because it's going to be bad. But yeah, it was crazy weather for sure. But we're around the flights of the round table, as Matt likes to call it, our beautiful podcasting table here in the Bourbon Life Studios, otherwise known as my basement. And we got a great guest line, a repeat guest, man, which is going to be a lot of fun, I think. Don't you, Matt?
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Let's get right into it.
Let's do it.
Yeah. I'll set the scene. It was episode 51, January of
It was a dark and stormy night.
It was.
It was a terrible night.
Yeah,
that's
kind
right.
of dark and slushy outside. Had all the ominous feelings of middle of winter, January 2021.
That's right.
But we were very gracious to have our guest on then, and we've brought him back again. He is the national brand ambassador for RD1 Spirits, Barry Brinegar. Great friend of the show.
Yeah.
And so great to have you back on.
Yeah, thanks for having me. I love the studio. Wow, I feel like a very important person down here.
Party Central. Sometimes when we get the crew together, it's like we'll sit here and we'll do the show. We'll drink 3 or 4 things, and then people linger and they start looking at it like, "Hey, I've not had that yet. What can we try that?" And then it's like we run through all the Glencairns and then all the Glencairns in the cabinet. And the next morning, I'm looking in the dishwasher, and there's like 35 Glencairns. It's like, yeah.
Yeah, everybody's fighting for elbow room on this huge table. It's full of bottles, and empty Glencairn.
It is.
Yeah.
When we get the whole crew, it's a great time. But man, we're happy to have you here. I'm glad you came to our place this time. We're happy to have you here. Last time we were at your place, we had a nice train whistle going on down there as well, right across from the railroad tracks there. So
it creates a moment, right there next to the train track.
Oh man, it does. And you guys just, I'll just go ahead and say you're located downtown on Manchester Street there in the Pepper Distillery District, right?
We are. We're just right up from one of the original Rick houses, the bonded warehouse number 1 that now is Manchester Music Hall. So that's the entrance of Manchester Street.
Oh, yeah.
And then we're down at the Pepper Rick House, that 5-story Rick House right there. We've got a pop-up brand destination there. You folks can come and see us and get a historical perspective of the tour and then sample some of our expressions, and we're going to sample a few here tonight with you.
Yeah. And last time we were down there, Matt was talking about this off air before we started. It was, I mean, you guys had really just kind of started. I mean, there was really not much. There was a table set up, there was concrete, and there was a lot of echo, and there were train whistles, and there was 35-degree weather and rain outside. And it was like, wow, this is kind of crazy. But you guys, things have changed in the last, it's been almost 2 years. We were talking about that, man. I cannot believe, Barry.
Time flies.
It really does, right? I mean, it was January 2021. I cannot believe it's been almost 2 years. But you guys have had a lot of changes down there.
We have.
With everything that's going on. So we can jump into that a little bit later and talk about what you got going on. But it's just great to have you here, man. I run into you like at all these different places, which is really cool. So I always enjoy getting to see you and talk to you. And the biggest change over the last 2 years is the beard. I just got a comment. I could not let the show go on.
I'm old Rip.
Man, you are.
I mean, I've awakened.
Yeah.
And the beard is going to continue to grow.
You were asleep in the woods for years, right? But yeah, man. So it was like last time I think you had the beard on the show.
Yeah.
Was that right? In 2021? You've always had a beard, right?
Yeah,
Or
it was
a little
trimmed a little bit shorter.
Yeah.
I just let
but
it
now
go.
it's like, boom, it's there. Yeah, I love it. It looks great.
Thank
so
you.
every time I see it, it's like, yeah,
I
there's
appreciate
Barry.
that.
And you're easy to pick out. It's like, oh, there's Barry.
But, the bourbon community is a very small community. You know,
is.
so we see each other at a lot of events. You know, there's a lot of great events that happen in the spring and in the fall, and that's what I love about Kentucky bourbon is that I mean, you could rub elbows with, Freddie Johnson, Jimmy Russell, and they're your best friend. you
Yeah.
know, because we see each other all the time.
Yeah, and it is really cool. I was just thinking about that earlier today when I was getting ready for the show. I was like, when was the last time? I was like, let's see, I saw Barry at the Breeders' Cup
Yep.
event downtown just a couple of weeks ago. And then, we saw you at the Kentucky Bourbon Festival. Saw you at the Bourbon on the Banks, I believe, as well.
Yep.
And just randomly run into you. So it's really cool. So
Love
I
it.
appreciate that. So let's talk real quick about what we're going to drink on this first round. You brought us some great expressions, so we're really pleased to have those and appreciate you bringing that. So tell us what we got poured up this first round.
So we've gone through a little rebranding, and so what the the team at our brand, we wanted to really represent the historical perspective of RD1, Registered Distillery Number 1, Lexington's first federal registered distillery. So the bottles that we have undergone a little bit of a change with that RD1 being branded on the front of the bottle. And so we did that when we released these new expressions. And so what we're drinking, these are Kentucky Straight Bourbon, and it is at 98 proof. So it's at a great proof point so that you're able to sip it neat. You can put it on the rocks, do a cocktail. The mash bill, it's a 70% corn, 21% rye, and 9% malted barley.
Okay.
And so, with that rye flavoring grain, it really gives you, at that 98 proof, a little bit of boldness, but not overwhelming on the palate. We can talk about it as we sip through, because I know you guys are really good tasters.
I'm not mad as.
Yeah, Matt is. I remember. Matt pulled out all those notes that were so crucial to that blend.
Telling you what, no doubt about that.
Yeah.
But okay. So RD1. So for our listeners, because originally when you're on the show, it was William Tarr Distillery,
Right.
so the name has changed, and we could talk about that change.
Sure.
Probably next round. We
Okay.
could go into a little more detail on that and everything that went into doing that. But now it's RD1. Same people, same business,
Yep.
same company. Just a different name to, like you said, and we could talk about that
Yeah.
as well a little bit later. So Matt, what do you pick up, man, on the nose on this one?
The first thing I picked up was some of the rye influence coming through. I got a nice nose of peppermint.
Yep.
Right up front, like a nice, bold but not overpowering peppermint. Then it lends into that beautiful sweetness, like nice corn sweetness. To me, it's like cornbread, corn casserole type of a sweetness, and good barrel influence too.
Yeah.
I absolutely get that the toast from that barrel. I get a little graham cracker on the nose for me, but absolutely you can get some of the grain on that, but not an ethanol type of aroma.
Right.
But I love the some of the fruity notes you get in here, and that's really what I love about Kentucky bourbon that is in that 4, 6, 7 year range. You really draw out a lot of the sweet, the fruit, and the floral notes. But for me, I definitely get a very distinctive fruit on this one, and you'll pick that up certainly on the mid palate and the finish.
Yeah. So now, in terms of age on this one, is there?
Yep.
What's the age? Can you talk about that?
Yeah,
Okay.
we it's a small batch, and we batched anywhere from, it's non-age stated. So what that means is it has to be at least 4 years old, and we've got 4 to 6 year old barrels in the small batch.
Okay, great. And this was distilled for you guys.
It was. So we've only been around since January of 2020, and saying that we got a 6 year barrel, we did source this mash bill. And we were fortunate that at that time there were enough of those barrels for us to source those. But now we've contract distilled, and we've got the same mash bill being laid down from anywhere from 6 year all the way down to new make.
I gotcha. So these barrels are ones you sourced.
Yep.
Yeah. Okay. Gotcha. Yep. But you're having new make, and we can talk about that again. What's going on with that? Because that's exciting news. Well, we'll talk more about it later. I'm getting ahead of myself. I
know.
Cannot
very
help
excited.
I know. I'm very
really
excited.
in there.
Yeah. No, there's a lot going on in this noggin right now, man. It's like it's hard to get it all out. I'm just excited about it. But Matt, I agree with you in terms of the taste on this, or the nose on this one. I get that mintiness that you talked about, but also just a nice sweetness from that corn. 70%. Is that 71?
Yeah,
70,
70%.
21? Yeah. So a nice sweetness on that. Just, and at 98 proof, man, it just, there's no ethanol. There's not that heavy, alcohol aroma that sometimes you can pick up. But yeah, very, very nice, man. Definitely.
Yeah.
So what Mad miss? What did he miss on his notes on that one?
Well, I think that if you're able to pick it out, and Matt's got a great nose, is really, it's going to be influenced once we take a sip on our palate and create aromas in our mouth. The Kentucky chew is so important. The nose picks up 1 trillion aromas, so it's really hard going one way and picking up a lot of those notes. But there is a distinctive orange citrus for me that I get, which will be accentuated, once we take a sip of this. But I think that for me, I get definitely the influence of the rye, that bold spiciness, and that can go in a whole different direction once we take a sip and really see it open up. But I think we're spot on right now. I think we're spot on with the rye influence, the char influence that you get. So you get, for me, I get a little bit of the earthy notes on the aroma, but those are going to be accentuated once we take.
So these barrels, are they char level 3, 4? Do you know?
I think Green River is where we've sourced these. So we're contract distilling right now with Green River. We've got some contracts out. Barstown Bourbon Company is also a very important legacy distillery that you're able to source from and contract distill. So those are two. So the influence there is going to be somewhere in that 3 char.
Yeah. Okay. All right. That's what I was wondering, because it's not like overly char, but you still pick up that oak note, a little bit of the char from there. Yeah. That you said. So, all right, Barry. So we had you on the show in episode 51, and you talked about your past in, but let's get a little refresher, just so people don't have to go back and listen to the whole show before.
I'll do the abbreviated version.
The cliff notes, right?
Yeah. I mean, I'm a local to Lexington guy, so for me, bourbon is in everybody's blood, either literally or, you should want to be an ambassador for Kentucky because it represents a $9 billion a year tourism business for the state. So for me, I started out in healthcare. I was a nurse in the operating room, and I found that I enjoyed talking to people, but I wasn't getting anything back.
Yeah.
And so I actually jumped into sales, and I did digital marketing, and that's really where I started meeting folks, business owners. My current team that I work with, I had talked with them, and we wanted to resurrect a bourbon brand. And so part of my experience was with the Lexington Bourbon Society. And,
Sure.
The Lexington Bourbon Society, they educate. And what I found was that I was getting a great education with them, and then meeting the Jimmy Russells and the Freddie Johnsons of the bourbon world, and recognizing that, Lexington's missing out on a lot of that bourbon tourism. And so finally reached enough people that were movers and shakers. And so we wrote a business plan. The first person that we spoke to was Mark Stoops, the University of Kentucky football coach, and coach. I mean, he loves his bourbon.
He's a bourbon fan. I know that
He's a
for sure.
big bourbon fan, and I think I have a pretty darn good collection. I'm dwarfed by his collection.
Really,
Yeah.
I've not seen his collection, so now I'm really. Okay.
It's pretty impressive.
When you make $9 million a year, I mean, you can afford a few bottles, right?
You might be able to afford a little bit of bourbon. Coach loved the story. He saw the passion that we had, and he was in, right from the get-go. And then fortunately, we spoke to Mike Tedderton and with Key Investment Solution. And so Mike saw the passion, but Mike also recognized that we were kind of naive in our ask, and the one thing that is a death to a bourbon brand is not having a liquid strategy. So Mike came in; he's the CEO of the company, and he's charted a path for us really to go national. And so that's kind of local boy, loves bourbon, and doing what I love most, which is being in the bourbon world, talking about bourbon. So local to Lexington. I'm a grandfather. I've got 5 grandkids.
Wow.
And I've got 3 kids. So just love my family, and really am enjoying getting to spend more time with them here in the local area. So it's been a fun ride so far.
Yeah, man. I mean, that's awesome and very inspirational to someone like myself that's a little older, But I mean, you're a great ambassador, not just for your brand, but I think you're a great ambassador just for bourbon in general, because you can tell you're very enthusiastic about the bourbon industry. And yes, you have a brand that you want to promote, and you want to see succeed, obviously. Mm-hmm. But at the same time, I mean, you can tell that you're very enthusiastic just about the bourbon industry in general.
Yeah, well, I appreciate that. One of the things that Eric Gregory, who is the president of the Kentucky Distillers Association, he says that a rising tide raises all ships. And
so does Matt. Yeah. Matt says that all the time.
I said that once or twice.
I love that statement, and it's so true. You never see a bourbon competition where one brand is pitted against another. You might see cocktail competition, but we don't compete against each other. There's great things to love about Kentucky bourbon. It's hard to go wrong with a Kentucky bourbon, right? I mean, unless you burn the mash, if it's not good going in that barrel, it's not going to be good coming out of that barrel.
Yeah, no doubt. So Matt, let's jump back over to the whiskey, man, and talk about this in terms of the palate and the taste. What do you get?
For 90.
Wait, did you have a question? You looked like you had a question before.
I did. I was ready to get into it.
Go ahead, man.
Right away, for 98 proof, I think it packs a nice punch right on the front of the palate. Good and spicy and bold. A lot of that peppercorn comes through right at the start of the palate. Get a little bit of coriander as well, kind of like those cracked grains or like cracked seasoned type tastes and aromas. Then that sweetness comes through with a little bit of the corn. I pick up like nice crisp red apple on the palate with this one. I think some of the fruit, and it comes through that way with like a real crisp, nice red apple. And then a nice sweet finish that's kind of like red licorice, I think. And then a good like spicy kind of nougaty vanilla right down the back of the palate. But really at 98 proof, I think this drink's warmer. I think it also at 4 to 6 years, I think it drinks the older side of that, nice and mature, and just blends together really well. It's like a really complete taste.
Well, I love those notes, and couldn't agree more with that. I absolutely am hearing what you're putting down there. I think that the spice itself can lend itself to several different areas on the spectrum. For me, that cracked pepper is pretty evident, but I can pick up some cinnamon notes on there. I can get some allspice. But that sweetness that you talk about, that 70% corn really does come through for me, and I can get more in the line of, I love that red apple. I think that's such a cool note, and I was really focusing more on the citrus piece of it. But when you said that, I'm like, I'm absolutely can agree 100% with that.
Mm-hmm. It's nice. The rye and the spice really wakes up the palate right at the first sip, and then that sweetness really shines afterward. After your palate's kind of awake and nice and bright, the sweetness really comes through to balance that out. And a lot going on in the glass. Works really well.
And what I really love about this particular expression is that at 98 proof, it's approachable. We've got mature palates. I notice you've got some high proof bottles over there, and I love a good high proof. But our market, that 90% of the market is female, and it's 21 to 35, male and female, and they're just kind of getting into their bourbon journey. So at 98 proof, it's very approachable.
Yeah,
Right?
It is. I agree. I mean, Matt said it drank not hot, but spicy. Yes, it is spicy, but it is approachable at 98 proof. So it's not something that's going to burn your mouth and make you be like, oh my gosh, I can't enjoy this.
Yeah. Yeah, I can. That spice, definitely in the back of the palate, but there's no hug. There's no Kentucky hug where it's burning from the tip of the mouth all the way down to the stomach.
But that spiciness, it hits the palate, like you said, Matt, and it lingers, and then that sweetness comes in, and it almost has almost like a butterscotch kind of sweetness to me that comes through as it lingers on the palate for a little while. Yeah. But that spiciness and the cinnamon, there's a touch of cinnamon, like you said, but that cracked peppercorn really is predominant on that initial taste. Yeah. But it just lingers, and it's really nice, man. 21% rye. Yeah, definitely a good pour for me. So
yeah, this will work well, as you can imagine, in the classic cocktail.
Sure.
It'll stand up to a Manhattan and old fashioned. That rye really represents well, and is going to be complemented by some of those Angostura bitters and some of the flavors that you want really in that classic cocktail.
Yeah, I was going to say that's something I was thinking of as I was drinking. I'm like, man, in a cocktail in an old fashioned, which I love, because sometimes when you drink a bourbon, you get too much. There's too much sweetness in the bourbon, and it just blends in with that simple syrup or the sugar or whatever you put in it. Mm-hmm. And it blends in too much, and you lose sight of the actual alcohol that's in the drink. Yeah. But something like this, and so usually when I make an old fashioned, I'll use a rye, like a high proof rye, just to get a nice spiciness. But this is one that would definitely stand up in that. There's no question about it.
Nice.
What do you think, Matt?
Absolutely.
Yeah, definitely. Well, guys, believe it or not, we're at the end of round one. So I say we probably take a break here.
Okay.
Final thoughts though, Matt, on the straight bourbon, the RD1.
I'm loving it. Loving where we're going so far.
Yeah, man, this is a great start to the show, right?
Absolutely.
No doubt about it. So let's take a quick break, get a word from our sponsors, and we'll be back with more with Barry Brinegar, with RD1 Spirits in just a minute.
The Stave Restaurant is a bourbon lover's paradise right here in the heart of bourbon country. Located at 5711 McCracken Pike in Millville, Kentucky, between Castle and Key and Woodford Reserve, Chef Kyle Klatka prepares amazing food each day that features an elevated Kentucky-inspired cuisine. With a full-service bar, great bourbon flights, and signature cocktails, the Stave is the perfect place to catch up with friends after a fun-filled day of touring the local distilleries. Be sure to check them out online at thestavekentucky.com or at Instagram and Facebook at The Stave Kentucky. Three Chords line of whiskeys embody the spirit of creativity. The whiskey is a true collaboration between producer and composer Neil Giraldo and master blender distiller Ari Sussman. The Three Chord team of expert blenders, coopers, and sensory professionals have developed a multi-step process they call Perfectly Tuned Taste. This process begins by carefully selecting the finest bourbon and rye whiskeys from Kentucky, Tennessee, and Indiana, and then blending them together. Find out more about the whiskeys and distribution in your area at www.threechordbourbon.com.
All right, everybody, welcome back for the second round of the Bourbon Life Podcast. I'm your host, Mark, and with me tonight, live in person in the Bourbon Life Studios. I'm glad you're live, Matt.
You don't have like a recording of me that you have to play off of.
No AI, no nothing, man. It's you live in the flesh with your beanie. I'm so excited you're here.
Raw talent.
That's exactly right. We got raw talent. Speaking, I didn't ask you how your Thanksgiving was, Matt. I should have done that in the first round. How was it?
It was absolutely splendid.
You're a Michigander, right? So,
yeah, I went up to the frozen north.
Yeah.
Saw the family, cooked a big meal.
Nice.
It was great. All the
Good.
things I love to do for the holiday.
Yeah. And you know what? I noticed today on our Spotify stats that we have like 80 different people that have us as their number one podcast on Spotify. So it's not just your mom and dad. All right. So we've got people listening to us out there, not just people, but 80 people have us as number one. So just, yeah. So there you go, man. So you can take that to the bank.
I will.
That and a quarter get you a cup of coffee, right?
Yeah, something like that.
Well, Matt, I'm glad you stuck around for round two. We're having a good show, man. It's great to be in the Bourbon Life Studios, otherwise known as my basement, right? So,
yeah.
And we've got a great guest with us tonight. Happy to have him here with us. I'm glad he decided to come over, and I'm glad he's stuck around for round two as well. So tell everybody who we have with us.
Exactly. He is the national brand ambassador for RD1 Spirits, Lexington's own Barry Brinegar. Barry, welcome back.
Wait,
Thank
should
you.
I do the?
Yeah.
Woo! There you go.
Glad to be back. Thank you. Thank you.
And while we're talking Thanksgiving, so I was at home doing a crossword puzzle, and one of the clues came up, and I just want to see if you all have heard this term before. The clue was stiff drink, and the answer was bracer. Have you ever heard of a stiff drink referred to as a bracer?
I can get that in my mind,
Yeah, but I wouldn't. That
liquid courage.
right? Yeah, or Dutch courage or whatever.
Yeah.
I mean, the same kind of. But no, a bracer. No.
Yeah.
I think of like aftershave. When I think of bracer, I think of like that makes me think of an aftershave. Just gonna brace you, get you going, get you ready. But no, not a stiff drink.
I'd never heard that before.
Interesting.
Yeah.
All right, listeners, let us know if you've heard of the term bracer before.
Yeah.
It's a stiff
Bracer
drink.
for a stiff drink.
Crazy. Yeah.
Anyway, I
digress, Matt.
We digress.
Oh, so we're back with Barry, hanging out for round two. Barry, glad you stuck around, man. We appreciate it.
Glad to be here.
Yeah. So tell us what we got poured out for round two tonight.
So what we poured out here in round two is our Kentucky Straight Bourbon. So same mash bill, 70 corn, 21 rye, 9 malted barley, but it's finished in French oak.
Okay.
And I love the influence of French oak on this mash bill. And we poured a little bit of that Kentucky Straight Bourbon to be able to go back and forth on the nose, because you're going to be able to really appreciate the boldness of that Kentucky Straight Bourbon, but the French oak influence, it kind of softens that nose. So as you're, and obviously it's got more influence of the wood.
Yeah, the color difference. I was just looking at your glasses. I'm like, wow.
Yeah.
I mean, that's crazy.
Yeah. And so what it does, the influence on that rye specifically, it accentuates the sweetness that you get on the nose.
Yeah.
You go back to the 98, the straight bourbon whiskey, and you can really appreciate more of that bold spiciness of that 21% rye.
Yeah. And that's funny because, I mean, I agree with you. And jumping ahead to the nose, just to jump in and give my 2 cents worth. It's funny because that 98, it does have that 21% rye really shines through on the spiciness, but that French oak on this one, what'd you say? What's the proof on this one again?
This one's 101 proof.
So it's even higher proof.
A little higher proof.
Yeah, 3 points, but it doesn't, I think it noses as a lower proof than the 98. Matt, you agree? You're shaking your head over there, so yeah.
Yeah, I absolutely agree. Barry, I think you put it perfectly, that it really does bring out the boldness in the straight bourbon. And that's not to say that the nose on this is at all subdued. It's just completely different profile.
Yep.
It's really, I get like a lot of fruit, a lot of red fruit, a lot of strawberry. There's some fig, there's plum, a really nice oak, like a nice dried, charred oak, like good seasoned, aged with it as well. It's like a little bit of sweetness, like a nougat. But it's crazy night and day, same mash bill. This even a couple proof points higher. Just the influence from that French oak is so different from what we had.
It is, and I know you guys are advanced tasters, but one of the things that really helps you pull out some of the notes is doing some dried fruit. When you're doing a simple bourbon tasting, it will help either accentuate or counteract some of those notes. And then I love eating pecans because pecans will help you identify the tannins in there. And so you do a pecan with this, you're going to get so much more of the influence of that wood.
Really?
Yeah.
Interesting.
I would add it to your tastings when you do it with friends and family. Bring in some of those dried fruits and nuts and cheese.
Yeah.
It really will help. Michael Veach talks about that. He talks about adding that to a tasting. Weta Michael, a local restaurateur, she does a flavor wheel, and it's just all of those fruits and nuts, and it helps to pick out. If you're kind of new in your bourbon journey, adding those things will help you start tasting like a pro.
Yeah. But I don't have any friends, Barry, so I'm just,
I'm your friend.
I appreciate that very much. Matt, I agree, man, that the profile is completely different on this one. Like you said, the red fruits that come out, the sweetness. I mean, the spiciness is, I guess, I'm struggling to find. I'm looking for it. I'm really searching for it.
Muted
in the nose, and I don't find it like I did on the 98, the straight bourbon. I don't find it. This just has so much sweetness, but there's still bourbon characteristics that come through. The oak comes through, like you said, as well a little bit. Man, just a enjoyable nose, just really nice. At 101 too, just kind of crazy.
I love that 101 proof on this. I'm glad that we went up a few notches on the proof scale.
Very nice. So let's jump back and talk a little bit about the change. We talked about it a little bit earlier from William Tarr to RD1. So let's talk about the William Tarr, the brand itself, and how that how that came about.
So the important thing is we have a rich history. RD1 stands for Registered Distillery Number 1, and back in the 1860s, the government needed tax revenue, so they registered distilleries. So in Tennessee and Kentucky, there were 7 different districts. Each district had a RD1, RD2, RD3, and so we were fortunate that RD1 in Lexington was called the Ashland Distillery. William Tarr grew up in Paris, Kentucky, and so he bought the distillery in 1871 and continued as the Ashland Distillery until a distillery fire burned down the operations in the late 1870s. He rebuilt it at a cost of $75,000 back then. After he rebuilt that distillery, it was valued at $115,000. So that just kind of shows you the influence of how distilleries were positioned back then, and their valuation. And so when he rebuilt it, he called it then the William Tarr Distillery. And so this, when we first came out, the Manchester Reserve is a blend, was a blend of an 8-year rye and a 7-year bourbon, and it was really our tribute to the man William Tarr, and that was the intention. Yeah, I see that bottle over there, delicious. But it was a limited release. It was not going to be a forever brand, and so we recognized that as we're coming to the end of that product, that we needed to take advantage of our brand's history from the 1860s to into Prohibition in 1923. So we felt that RD1 was more relevant. It does come with a little bit of an explanation because you see RD1 on the bottle, and even a lot of bourbon folks are not familiar with how the registration of distilleries were taken care of back in the 1860s.
Right. Sure.
So it does come with a little bit of a description, but once you talk about it, it's understood, and then people kind of latch onto that history. But we're a relevant current brand. And so as you look at the label here, it's a very sleek looking label.
Yeah, definitely
And I think it really does appeal to the younger audience. So it creates some curiosity, and then really the flavors are what is going to bring people back to the brand. And it's approachable. The first product that we had, the Kentucky Straight Bourbon whiskey, is $49. So
Wow.
it's very approachable. Right now, the French oak finished is priced at $59. I have a sneaking suspicion that price is going to go up a little bit, but two great quality products that are positioned price point wise to reach a broader audience.
Yeah. I mean, you can't beat the pricing on that, and the flavor. I mean, it's no doubt about it. We can talk about the palate here in a few minutes for sure. But how hard was it? I'm just curious. How hard has it been, I should say, in terms of going from William Tarr to the RD1? What is the biggest challenges that you face with that so far, Barry?
Well, I think that it comes with a rebranding, so anytime you rebrand, you've got to create awareness. So we're essentially taking a little bit of a step back and rebranding ourselves. Fortunately, we're right now just in the state of Kentucky. And so we just have to create that awareness in Kentucky, that rebranding awareness. But once we move out into other states, and, in 2023, we'll be in 7 new markets.
Wow.
So we've got a story. We're going to stick with our story, and we're going to make sure that as we move out into Indiana, we move into Michigan and Florida and Texas, that we're consistent with that story, because the consumer wants consistency in the flavor. When you come out with a bottle one year to the next, you want to have a consistent flavor. Same thing with the brand. You need a consistent story and a branding to continue to grow, and that's where we're poised right now, is with that branding of RD1.
Gotcha. So talking about that consistency in terms of your batching and things, because these are small batches, so you are looking for that consistent profile from batch to batch.
100%. I mean, it's super important, especially as, having enough barrels in a product with the right mash bill at the right age statement. That's very important, that consistency. And so, right now our brand has the option of over 20,000 barrels.
Wow.
So we have a liquid strategy to move ourselves forward. And then, the key, as you had just mentioned, is making sure that we're blending those barrels appropriately so that we get that consistent flavor. When you start finishing, then it's just an equation of getting the right wood and the right percentage of that wood to create that influence at that right point. You don't want to over oak it,
right,
because that's very easily done. And so really that equation of the right mash bill, the right wood influence for the right amount of time.
So how's that being done with that French oak? Is it actually in separate French oak barrels, or are you vatting and adding staves to that?
Yeah. So from a cost of goods standpoint, we're not using an additional barrel, because that would add
they're
a whole
expensive.
They are very expensive.
Yeah.
So we have the staves that we're able to put into the bung hole.
Okay.
And so they go in there, and then there's a percentage of that wood that is being laid into that barrel, and then we're sampling every week. And it gets mature quicker, and so the key is being able to remove that influence once we've got the right flavor profile.
Okay, and that makes sense, because we've talked to people before that are doing French oak, and from my understanding is that the barrels are just crazy expensive on those French oak brands. So that makes a lot of sense. But hey, if you ever need anybody to come and taste your barrels with the French oak staves in it, Matt and I will more than
or without the French oak staves.
Yeah, straight from the barrel. That's my motto is give it to me straight from the barrel. If I need to proof it down, I will. But we're a 1%er group here.
Yeah, no doubt about that. But that's all right. It's good to be in the 1%, right, Matt?
Yeah.
All right, so let's talk about the palate and the finish on this one, Matt. What are you picking up on this one?
So more of that rye comes through. Certainly not as bold and spicy as the straight bourbon, but it comes through that peppercorn, more of those baking spices on this one. The cinnamon is there, that allspice, a little bit of nutmeg, kind of this like softer side of the baking spice spectrum. It's got a nice heat that lingers on the tongue, and then kind of lends into that sweetness again. It's like sweet cinnamon candy, the like really luxurious cherries, and like that luxurious smoky kind of oak. I think the French oak really has a great influence to it there. I pick up like a nice sweetened cream, or like a whipped, not whipped cream, but like I'm just gonna say nougat. I can't really think of like what I'm trying to describe, but kind of like a nice nougaty, like baked sweetness to it. And then the heat comes back, a little bit of that rye spice on the tail end too. Nice little bit of the peppercorn, but again, it's really like just really luxurious. Really, I don't want to use the word smooth, but
Right.
it's got a really complete taste.
Yeah, I like the term soft. It softens that 98 proof that we started with, and if I could lend another descriptor here, I get a little bit of the of cocoa. I don't get like the sweet chocolate, but I get this baking chocolate note, and then like a chocolate covered cherry. That cream that's in there. I definitely get that on here. But what I love about it, and you picked up on it, is the rye's still there. It's just different. It's not as bold as the 98 proof. It's kind of softened, but it's still there. And it at the finish, it comes back. So you get that cracked peppercorn. You get some of the different on the spice spectrum. You get, like you had mentioned, the allspice. You get some of the other nutmeg, but you don't have to hunt for it like you would with the first sample that we had. Perfect description.
Yeah. And I get, Matt, you mentioned cinnamon a little bit. That sweetness, it reminds me a little bit like a Brock's cinnamon candy. You get that sweetness, that spicy punch of that cinnamon that comes through. But I was sitting here, when you said cherry, I was like, yep. But that cocoa, that chocolatey aroma, and I mentioned that when we finished the first round, because I took that last drink of the straight bourbon, I was like, okay, guys, I'm detecting a little bit of chocolate here, which is kind of weird, but yeah, so I'm picking that up with that cherry, and I was thinking the same thing, a chocolate covered cherry.
Yeah.
But not the sweet chocolate like you said, but just that chocolate flavor, that cocoa kind of flavor with that with a cherry with it.
Yep.
So yeah, just really nice, man. Just a nice blend of different flavors. But again, at 101, it's not gonna. I mean, this is something that you could be in a lot of trouble with.
It almost tastes like too luxurious to really get in trouble with. Like it just has,
you wouldn't want to drink
such a like rich and like well put together palate that I couldn't. It's like, to me, this is like a perfect after dinner.
Yeah,
it's got all like the sweetness and just this really great mouthfeel, really great flavor. Like that's, you're not just tasting things. Like the bourbon itself just has a good flavor all around. I think to me, this is more of like a savoring type bourbon than like a hurting yourself.
But the funny thing is, Matt, because we've had a few other French oak finished bourbons recently, and to me, they came across more spicy. Like there's a bigger spicy punch to it and I don't mean that in a bad way. I was just saying that I was thinking that I was going to get that kind of a spicy punch. But I like this because it's a little more subdued, but you get that cinnamon sweetness, like I said, like a Brock's candy.
Yeah.
You still get a little bit of that peppercorn on the back end of it.
Yeah.
So it's a different finish. Even though it's French oak, it's different than the other finished bourbons. I don't know, Matt, if you thinking back to what we've had. Does that make sense?
Yeah, you are making a lot of sense with that.
Okay.
This chases out different flavors. It's really unique. A lot of the fruits come through here, I really love the rye.
Yeah.
Coming through in just a completely different way from the same mash bill, only a few proof points off, but just seeing what the influence of the French oak does to that.
So maybe that's what it is. I mean, it's the underlying bourbon that the French oak interplays with. Obviously,
Yeah.
it has a different result.
Yeah, it's really been transformed.
Yeah.
Differently from
For
what
sure.
we had in the first round.
Yeah, I agree.
And we talked about this off mic, but if the viewers, if you'll take some dried fruit, some dried cherries or some nuts, especially pecans, and if you'll add those to your tastings, it'll help pick out some of the fruit notes that you may think that you're tasting in a sample. The wood is going to bring out, or the pecan is going to bring out that wood influence. So if you did a pecan with this, you would absolutely get more of that wood tannin on the palate. So a great technique to help you become tasting like a pro.
Yeah, and this does have a little bit of a tannic finish to it. So it is a little drying, and that just, as you were talking, I was like, huh, yeah, I guess, yeah. And usually when I get a tannic finish, I'm like, I like a big, bold, robust, lingering, and I don't want to feel like I have to take a drink of water, but I don't feel that with this. So that the blend is nice. It's a very light tannic feel. You get that effect, but you don't. It's not overwhelming.
Yeah, and that's really the art of finishing. Is you gotta get enough influence on that wood, but not too much.
Right.
And because it can go over really quickly.
Oh yeah, and we've had some that have gone over where you're like, you take a drink and you're like, I've got to have a drink of water, or I'm not going to be able to make it through the rest of the show because my mouth is so dry. But yeah, this one is nothing like that. So very good, Matt. Final thoughts on this one? We're at the end of round 2 here, so let's get final thoughts on it.
I love it. It's a great play on something we're seeing becoming more and more popular, the French oak, and this is as good a take on it and completely unique. It does a good job of highlighting the mash bill, but also showing the influence on it.
Yep, awesome. I agree. No doubt about it. Big fan of this one for sure. Yeah, very, very nice. All right, let's take a quick break, get a word from our sponsors, and we'll be back with more with Barry Brinegar with RD1 Spirits in just a minute.
Spirits of French Lick crafts their spirits using only the finest agricultural product that has defined character, following their motto, respect the grain. They lead the way in representing the quality of the Hoosier artisan distilling process while paying tribute to its inseparable past. By implementing best practices from those early times, combined with modern touches, Spirits of French Lick has created a truly unique place in the industry. Spirits of French Lick products are distributed throughout Indiana, Kentucky, and Missouri, and can also be purchased online through Sealbox at sealbox.com. Visit spiritsoffrenchlick.com to learn more information and make sure to follow them on Facebook and Instagram.
All right, everybody, welcome back for the third and final round of the Bourbon Life Podcast. I'm your host, Mark, coming to you in person.
You are live right now.
I am alive right now, that's right. But when they listen to it, Matt, whatever time of day it is, it's not going to be live, right? It's recorded.
Well, it's live for our listeners.
There you go. It's live to them because they're listening to it.
We can just tell we are live for you right now.
Matt, you know what? Somebody said that our show was really good, but it's quirky. And I was like, what do you mean? And now I'm starting to understand.
You see the quirkiness?
Now I'm like, okay, I'm beginning to see the quirk here. So anyway, moving on. But yes, hey, we're down in my basement, otherwise known as the Bourbon Life Studios. We're around the Flights of the Round Table, which is actually just a nice big rectangle. It's not even round. But I've got my good friend Matt with me tonight. Matt, how you doing down there at the end of the square table?
Oh, Mark, I am doing good, except for the fact that I'm bummed we're only doing 3 rounds tonight. I feel like we could.
Man, we could go all night, right? We could just keep going. You know what?
I'm in it.
I'm saying we've got enough stuff, even though it might not be your stuff. We've got at least one bottle we could tap into over there, and then we could just tap into other stuff and just keep going.
I'm a bourbon fan.
I know you are. There's no question about it, man. The first time I met you, Barry, it's funny, I was thinking about that today as well, was at it was at the Stave for the Castle and Key.
Yes.
The Restoration Rye release party they had out there because it was at night and they had the bonfires going at the Stave.
So cold.
Yeah, it was so cold. Again, another cold night. What is it, Barry? It's like,
we get together
it's
during
cold.
the cold months.
Yeah, but it's such a cool, the Stave was so much fun out there with the fire pits and everything. And you brought the Manchester Reserve.
Yep.
And shared some, and you're like, here, just take the rest of the bottle. I'm like, are you sure? You're like, yeah. So, but I think that was the first time we actually met, which was, Man, that was probably 2020, I think.
Yeah,
Maybe
it was
something-
during full-on COVID.
Yeah, right, because we were outside.
We
doing
were
the-
social distancing.
That's right, social distancing outside in the middle of the winter, which is a lot of fun. So anyway, Matt, since we've already started talking with our guests, but tell everybody who we have with us.
We have RD1's national brand ambassador, Barry Brinegar. He's back for round or session number 3. And you brought a special bottle for this one. And before we even start talking about it, I've just got to say the color on this.
Oh, yeah.
This bourbon is absolutely gorgeous. Like, such a dark gold auburn. This is gorgeous. But anyway, what are we drinking?
So what we're drinking, this is a barrel pick that Liquor Barn picked out. So Brad Williams, I know that we know Brad. He's the buyer.
He's an all right guy.
He is an all right guy. And so he actually, Liquor Barn was the first brand to do a barrel pick with us.
Were they really?
Yeah. So this is one of the first of 4 barrels that Brad picked up on that day. This one is a Kentucky Straight Bourbon whiskey. It's finished in French oak and American oak, and it's at cask proof. So it's at 121.9 proof. And as we've already mentioned, nice dark color. It's got great aromas. You can get that influence of the French and the American oak. And I love this at barrel proof. This was probably the first barrel that he picked out. He loved the influence that the wood had at that barrel strength.
So just curious, in terms of doing the barrel pick, because this is being laid down, elsewhere, obviously not here in Lexington. Mm-hmm. Are you doing the barrel picks down there, or are you doing them here in...
We do them at our brand destination in the distillery district. So,
Okay.
And that's a temporary location for us. We call it a pop-up brand destination. And so what we do is when we're doing finishing, we bring those barrels either to our location there at the gift shop pop-up, or we have a bottling partner in Harrodsburg, Kentucky Whiskey Bottling, and they have a nice Rick location there that we'll put barrels in as we're doing some finishing. We can only we've seen our location there in the distillery district, and there's only so much room that we can put barrels in there.
Sure, yeah. So how long are you guys finishing these for?
We what I like to say is we finish them until they're ready, and we do things a little bit differently. We don't use a whole barrel. We take staves and we insert those into the existing barrel. So we're sampling after about week 2 or 3. Every week we're sampling to make sure that it doesn't get over oaked, because you can over oak these really quickly.
Okay.
And so typically it's anywhere from the 8 to 14-week time frame.
Okay.
And then once it gets to that point where we have a tasting panel, and once the panel decides, and what I love about that tasting panel, it's all random. Nobody knows what somebody else is saying, and I'm a very analytical person, so I like to give numerical values to it. So I'm very data driven. But some people are just like, I like it. It's kind of like it. So it depends on your how you like to rate things. But unanimously, the barrels that we've laid down have been in that in about that 10-week range of finishing.
With this one, you got American oak and the French oak. So is it combined at the same time?
It is, yeah,
Okay.
yeah. So we did, and here's another thing that's really unique about our brand is that we have, we're not building this brand to exit. We're building this brand to grow. And one of the things that we have the latitude, because we're a very flat organization as far as having a lot of leadership there. Leadership's involved, but we have the ability to, I don't want to say do experimental, but that's really what we're doing. I mean, we have 10 different expressions that we've done finishing on.
Wow.
And I'll talk about this a little bit later, what's coming up in the future, but we're really super excited for the different labels that we're going to be coming out with next year.
Very cool. Matt, let's talk about the palate on this one that you got poured up here. What do you think?
Should we start with the nose?
Yes, Matt. Let's start with the nose.
All
Goodness
right.
gracious.
It's a good place to start.
Yeah. Mark's going to start with the palate, and I'll start with the nose.
You go ahead. Yeah. Go ahead, Matt.
I would never have guessed that this is 121.9 proof right away.
Not at all.
This, to me, noses even like as low or lower almost than the 101 proof.
Yeah, and I completely agree with you. I think that it's that influence, both of that French oak and that American oak. It really going back to that soften. It softens the aromas. If you go back to the 98 proof, nose it, and then give this one a nose, and it's just rich. It's just a richer flavor that you're getting off of the aromas there. Completely agree with you. And so you can pick up some nice fruit there on the aroma. But I think for me, I get a little bit of the stone fruit that's coming out pretty predominant on my nose.
Yeah, nice ripe stone fruit, like good plum.
Yeah.
Just like a nice savory, like fig or date kind of aroma to it as
Like
well.
a Fig Newton, man. It's like
It kind of, yeah.
I keep thinking of a Fig Newton.
Yeah.
When I'm,
Yeah, it's got like that baked outside, not just the fig filling on it as well.
it's like the whole cookie.
Yeah, and then the American oak actually comes through. So I think we pick up kind of those stone fruit red French oak flavors, and the American oak comes through too. There's kind of that woodsy, smoky, kind of like charred, like dried oak, like nice natural type smell to it, and then like again the sweetness. I'm picking up more of that nougat, like pie crust, kind of across the gamut that we've had. Now, is this the same mash bill? The 70,
It is,
21
yeah.
wine?
Yeah.
Okay.
70 corn, 21 rye, 9 malted barley. Yep.
Yeah, man. Very nice.
Yeah. Again, just like
Brad does a pretty good job picking barrels. I'm just gonna say, even without us,
Yeah,
there,
even
Matt.
without us,
Yeah, he did pretty good on this one.
He's a pro. He's done a lot of barrel picks.
We got to go on a pick with him, and it was an experience. And we had a great time. And the barrel we picked was pretty crazy, but it was a great experience. So we're thankful to him and Bourbon Life to Liquor Barn because they sponsor the show. So we're obviously thankful for them.
And this, this is one of 4 barrels that Brad picked, and it is available right now at Liquor Barn. When's the show going to air?
Actually, it'll be Friday. So everybody listening, it is.
so. It's right now.
It's right now.
airing right now.
Yeah, go to Liquor Barn, both in Louisville, actually across the state. They've gotten distribution at most of the larger Liquor Barn stores.
Okay.
You should be able to find each one of these readily available, but not for long. So run out and grab one. And the nice thing about what Liquor Barn does, especially if you're in Lexington, over at Plotted Place in Hamburg, they have this on their tasting bar. So for $2.99, you can get a pour.
Are
of
you
this.
serious?
Yeah, isn't that crazy?
$2.99.
$2.99 for the 101 proof, $3.99 for the barrel proof. So it is a very good value.
Yeah,
Taste it before you buy it.
I know where I'm going to be tomorrow. Wait,
You,
the mayor of
didn't
Liquor
even
Barn.
have to. Yeah, we didn't have to talk about these being available at Liquor Barn. Everybody knew where you were going to be tomorrow for lunch.
Let's just say, occasionally I go to Liquor Barn up here in Hamburg. Every once in a while, Barry.
Yeah. Andrew's my guy over there.
Oh, man.
Love Andrew.
He's awesome.
Yeah, he is.
He is. He's such a good guy, man.
He's a Hatfield.
Oh,
Yeah, Andrew Hatfield of the Hatfield.
I did not know that.
Yeah, the clan.
All right,
The
next time
Hatfield clan.
when I'm in there tomorrow, we're gonna have to have that conversation. I did not realize that, but it is a great story, and that's where Matt and I met. That's how the Bourbon Life was conceived. Hanging out there, just drinking, seeing each other up there, and just started talking and hanging out. And it was funny because one time we were up there, and one of the ladies that worked there was like, I think it's so nice that you can come up here and hang out and drink with your son. I was like, son of a bitch. Really?
Paul.
I was like, come on. Anyway, yeah, man. But
Enough about us. We got to.
yeah. So
Yeah.
so these bottles, the 4, are they all the same, American and French? Or are they
No.
different?
So
Okay.
so they've got a red oak.
Okay.
And the red oak is at barrel strength. They have a cherry wood that's at 101 proof.
Okay.
And then they have a Kentucky Straight Bourbon at barrel strength. So 3 of them are barrel proof, and 1 is at a 101 proof.
Damn it. All right. What kind of price point are we looking at on this? Can we?
Very, very approachable. The 101 proof is priced at $71 and some change. The barrel proofs are at $84.95.
Really?
Yeah. They are priced to move.
I was going to say,
Yeah.
So I know what's going on. I know where I'm going to go tomorrow. Yeah. Damn it. Man, so much. Nobody's getting Christmas gifts this year. Mark's going to get
Here, have a pour out of this bottle.
Here, let me crack this bottle. Let you have a pour out of it. So let's talk about. Well, we talked about earlier. The previous round, we talked about the Manchester Reserve, but recently there was a pretty exciting video that came out.
Yeah.
From a well-known reviewer by the name of Mr. Fred Minnick.
Fred Minnick, yeah.
Yeah.
Love that guy.
Yeah, man. So he talked about he never had it before. He's like, I just picked this bottle up and just giving it a try. And it was just funny because watching the video, man, you can see his expression. Like, I mean, he's like, wow. So talk about that, man. What happened there? How'd you?
Well, first of all, very much an honor to have him post that out there. You know, he's running through, I think he said he's running through 100 of his favorite picks, you know, over the month of December.
Yeah.
And we were one of the first ones that he reviewed, and, you know, due in no small part to our marketing guy who, you know, beating his door down saying, hey, you need to review our Manchester Reserve. And that Manchester Reserve, that's at 114 proof. It's a blend of an 8-year rye and a 7-year bourbon, multi-award winning. It's won double platinum, single platinum, 4 gold medals. The experts say it is a premium Kentucky whiskey. And, you know, what Fred picked out there on the notes is exactly, you know, what we've been saying. This is unique.
Yeah.
You know, you get that strong influence of the corn, you get that sweet flavor profile, but the rye, just barely a rye at 51 rye, 37 corn, 12 malted barley, 38 corn. So the important piece of that is that the rye is there, but it is a creme brulee.
Yeah.
You know, it's very caramel. So, you know, having Fred Minnick's talk about that, it's a temporary, you know, it's a limited release product. It's going to be off the shelf.
It's going to be gone now.
It's going to be gone, and you know, it's from our initial launch. So it's kind of a unicorn because we're never going to see William Tarr on a bottle.
Yeah.
You know, so go out and get it. You know, set it back, and, you know, hold on to it for a few years. I may have, you know, a case or 2 or 10 in my inventory just because I love it. I love that flavor profile. But that 114 is really a, you know, it ranks up here with our, you know, our barrel strength products that we've got.
Well, I had a barrel or bottle that you'd given to me, and obviously I'd finished that. So today, actually, I went over and I was like, I'm going to have to get another bottle of that just to have it. So I bought it. I already tapped into it, obviously, tonight. But yeah, I may have to go back and buy some more. I'm not going to tell you which local Lexington store, but you may have been there tonight as well, Barry, from what I understand.
Yes. Yeah. And you know, what I love about that is that it's representative of Kentucky whiskey. You know, it's got Kentucky products in there, and you know, a great flavor profile. There may be a temporary price reduction. It's priced to move, and, you know, with that review that Fred Minnick has given us, I think we're probably going to just push us over the ledge of it's no longer available.
It's going to be gone. I have no doubt in my mind. So if you're out there and you can access the bottle, find it, the Manchester Reserve, the 114 proof, you need to pick it up because you're not going to find it ever again.
Go get it now.
Unless you know Barry like we do, and we can call him up and say, hey, Barry, can you help me up? So let's talk about the whole Green River thing. So you guys, things have changed now.
Yep.
Jacob has left, and Jacob is actually going to be on our show next week.
Oh, that's so cool. Yeah.
Jacob and his dad and his brother, I think.
Yeah,
the whole family
just released Hemingway, their new brand, and I'll tell you what, I love what Jacob does, and, you know, we're fortunate. You know, when you look at a craft distillery like ourselves, you know, in order to get started, you got to source barrels, and we did the right thing by sourcing at a quality distillery that Jacob was at, which was Green River, and his influence is so much on this product, and the fact that he's now moved and just launched the Western Kentucky Distilling Company. It's in Ohio County in Beaver Dam, and RD1 is actually a shareholder, and a partner with him in that distillery. So it's kind of nice to have that opportunity. We'll be doing contract distilling with them, as a partner, and they've got to pay the bills, so they'll be giving some contracts to other places that need new make.
Well, I'm telling you, man, everything we've had from Jacob. Well, let's go back, because originally they used to have the whole O.Z. Tyler thing, whatever all that was, and that was obviously not that great of a brand. But anything that Jacob was actually distilling and laying down and putting up, it was amazing. And I don't think a lot of people out there know about Jacob. He's kind of like one of those hidden gems that people really don't know that much about. I feel like, anyway. And then Bradshaw Bourbon came out, which was sourced from Green River, and Fred Minnick went nuts about that first release as well. And then people started going crazy about it. But then he's done like Yellow Banks, the things we had Jacob on the show, and the stuff he sent us was just like, holy crap! I mean, it's like I had no idea that what you guys were putting out in there was this impressive. And now you're finding out that there's people sourcing that you maybe didn't know had been sourcing from Green River, and you're like, wow. I mean, doing some great stuff. Don't you agree, Matt?
Most certainly.
Yeah.
I couldn't agree more.
Yeah.
It's great to hear you talk about it, Barry, and be able to say this is Green River and say it with pride.
Yeah.
It's because it really is. They've done great stuff. They stand behind their products, and people should know more about them.
Absolutely.
Well.
The folks that have kind of grown up with Green River as they had taken over that distillery recognize that they've got such a gem in their community. And I think, a lot of people were sad to see him leave, but then, oh my gosh, he's just a few miles down the road in Ohio County. So lots of pride in that Western Kentucky thoroughfare, and, it's just going to continue to grow.
Yeah. So you guys have barrels that were laid down by Jacob at Green River. They'll stay there. You still have access. I think you said 20,000.
So our brand has the option of all of those barrels.
Okay.
We have a wholesale whiskey company, and that wholesale whiskey company is separate from the brand, but the brand gets the right of first refusal on those barrels.
Okay.
We've got to. We're not putting out new make. We're not putting out gin and vodka. So we've got to have a way of paying the bills, and that wholesale whiskey company does that for us.
Yeah. Very nice. Very smart. That's a great plan. So not only do you have barrels that you guys can access, but you have barrels that are available that you can, very, very cool. Matt, let's jump over to the palate now that we've talked about the nose and things on this. And what do you get?
Spicy right up front.
Spicy.
The rye coming out. I know that on the nose it was very, very soft due to the influence of the two different finishes and the two different oaks. But it's hard to hide at 121.9 that there is some spice on this, and there's no burn. There's no high proof burn, no Kentucky hug, no ethanol, no light your guts on fire. It's just got nice spice, good flavor coming out of it.
Yeah.
I absolutely agree. It's a flavor bomb. It has a little bit of a punch with that 121 proof, but it's not that Kentucky hug, that burning. It is full on flavor, and you can pick up some of the aromas that you're picking up on the nose are being enhanced by the palate, and still getting stone fruit, but you're getting a whole lot of the influence of that oak. So as you're tasting that, I'm picking up a lot of the char. I'm getting a lot of the barrel influence on here. This is raw flavor, and you're getting a full on punch in the mouth with that flavor.
Oh yeah, there's no question about it. And I can't get over looking at the legs. I mean, it just the whole glass is streaked from where I've had sips of it. So it's obviously very oily. And you feel that in the mouth. I think, it coats the mouth really nicely.
Yep.
But just great flavors. But Matt, you're right. That spice, just like it's there. I mean, there's no way to deny it. It's like, there's the spice. But it's not hot, because I drink, Stag, and I drink Elijah Craig Barrel Proof. And it's a different experience drinking those, but they're right in the same proof point. But they're so much harder to drink. I enjoy it, but it's a different drinking experience than what this is. Completely.
Yeah. Yeah, I added a couple of drops to it, and it just really enhances a lot of those flavors. So, the influence of that wood is super enhanced with a little bit of water.
Yeah, very, very nice. So, Barry, let's talk about the future. What does it look like? You guys, you mentioned earlier you got 7 states you're coming on board with. What else is going on with you guys?
Well, the first state that we're going to move into, we've already hired a state manager for Indiana, and we're actually approved to go into that state. But you guys understand O&D, October, November, December, for suppliers and distributors and liquor stores. You don't really want to move a new product in during that time because everybody's focused on, the biggest selling month. We're here, the next 4 weeks are going to be super busy for our brand. And so once we move into the January market time, we're actually going to be changing over to a custom bottle. And so what you're going to see, the same RD1 label is going to be on a throwback bottle that if you look on my social media, on my Instagram and my Facebook page, I just posted, I'm in search of this bottle. And it's a glass bottle that has embossed the brand name. And so we're going to have our brand name, Kentucky Born and Bred, or Born and Raised. You can see that on the label.
Yeah.
That's going to be embossed on the bottle.
Nice.
And then we're going to have, if you think of what's iconic to Central Kentucky, and it's the horse industry.
Sure.
So you see these horse farms with those fence rows. So we're going to have the fence rows on the bottom of the bottle.
Nice.
That's embossed, and then the RD1 is going to be prominently displayed there. So the label's going to be smaller so that you can see the color of the whiskey.
Yeah.
And so it's going to be a really unique throwback bottle. And so we want to launch that into that Indiana market. So you'll start seeing that bottle showing up on store shelves in February, and also in that Indiana market. Then we're going to move into 6 additional states or locations, and really driven by discussions with our distributor and where our footprint can go, because we've got access to all these barrels. We just have to, the important piece of a growing brand is to make sure that those store shelves don't run dry.
Right.
And it's really a death to a brand is you introduce a product, consumers like it, and they go back for that second, third, and fourth bottle, and they're nowhere to be found. So we've solved that problem with our inventory, and so as we're looking into the future, you're going to see a couple of new products, a couple of new finishes.
Okay.
And you all have heard of Amberana. Brazilian oak.
Yep.
Oh my gosh, this is, in fact, I'll tell you what I'm going to do when we're done with the segment. I'm going to go out and get a sample for us to taste. It is, you want to talk about the influence that Brazilian wood has on that finish. Super spicy, very outside the flavor wheel, and unique. We've had some of the Amberana finish bourbons and whiskeys before. It takes it to a whole different level. Here we're in that sweet profile. You got the influence of the rye on these flavors. The Amberana is just totally different. So very much in the spicy category. And then we're working on on another finish that's going to be more sweet, and so that one's yet to be identified.
All right. That sounds great. So in terms of the distillery and coming to visit, you guys are downtown Manchester Street, right?
Yep. So we're open 7 days a week.
Okay.
So Monday through Saturday, we open at 10 o'clock until 5 p.m. And then on Sunday, we open at 1 p.m. till 5 p.m. So you can go in and, for $10, you can do a 4-expression tasting, and our gift shop workers are very versed in doing tastings. They will bring out the dried fruit and the nuts and walk you through a tasting.
Nice.
You add chocolate to it, and really does enhance the tasting experience. And then, of course, we got merchandise. We're a gift shop there, but we also have an event space there. So if you want to have a party, bring your friends, you can book that space, and you can book a tasting with us, or, whatever you want to do, that space is available in the Distillery District. So on Manchester Street in that 5-story Pepper Rick House.
Right. So when the new Western Kentucky Distilling opens up, are you guys going to have a presence there as well? Will you have a presence there?
Initially, the launch of that distillery is just going to be for production.
Okay.
So we announced, and the brand announced that we're going to build this distillery, and then with the option of adding on that gift shop experience. So right now, got to pay the bills with contract distilling, but there is at this point talks of having a brand destination there in Ohio County. But being true to our brand in Lexington, we will have a location here. So if you see what's happened with other brands that have distilleries, they have gift shop and brand destinations in Louisville and in Lexington, and so you're going to see that continue to pop up because the legislature has allowed suppliers to be able to have not only a distillery location but an additional gift shop offsite, which really is very helpful to the life of a brand.
It's nice to see the Kentucky legislature has really, over the last few years, really, and maybe it's because legislators are actually becoming bourbon producers or brand owners or whatever, but whatever it is, it's nice to see that they've really expanded the horizons of what's available in terms of the bourbon industry and what you guys can do.
Yeah. They and even still, it's really tough on new suppliers, because there's a tax on those barrels. So Kentucky's the only state that does this. Every year, we have to pay taxes on that barrel as if there's 53 gallons in that barrel. And even if you've got a barrel that's aged, 6, 8, 12 years, it's still taxed at 53 gallons. And we've got to fix that. For brands our size, they struggle. They really do.
Sure.
So, we've come a long way, and the legislature has been very friendly, thanks in part to the Kentucky Distillers Association that really lobbies on behalf of Kentucky distilleries.
Very cool. So, Barry, what's been, in your mind, what's been the best part of this whole journey for you? Many different things, but I'll point on one is my wife Tori. She was a wine drinker, and anytime I was drinking bourbon early in the life of our marriage, she couldn't stand the smell. And one of the best things was a couple of years ago we went on vacation, and we went down to Florida, and I was bound and determined I'm going to find a cocktail that she's going to like. And we came out of that vacation, and she was a bourbon fan, and now, I mean, she's an ambassador. Whenever we go out, and we if you follow us on social media, you know that we eat out a lot. We know our servers by name, and they know us. They know what we like, and she's becoming a brand ambassador. So she's talking about the brand, she's telling the brand story, and I'm just very proud of her. The other thing, and Freddie Johnson with Buffalo Trace talks about this, is creating memory moments. Wherever you go, and here tonight, of course, we're doing a podcast, but we've created another moment, a memory moment. And we referred back to the January 2021 time frame where and those vivid moments are still alive in our minds. And so creating memory moments, like this are what makes this job so much fun, because it's lifelong. We have friends that we make in this journey that are all because of this brown water. Yeah, I agree, man. That's very well said. I mean, there's no better way to really say that. I mean, that's great. So, before we wrap it up, though, where can people find more information about RD1 and find you as well in terms of social media and everything?
Well, we're on the World Wide Web at RD1 Spirits.
You're in the internet, aren't you?
in the internet at RD1 Spirits. You can find us there. You can book a tasting on our website. You can find us right now on Instagram, RD1 Spirits, and Facebook, RD1 Spirits. And we, believe it or not, we've got a great social media manager. My young girl, super smart, and she's got us on TikTok now. And you know, TikTok's one of those things. I'm a former digital marketing guy.
Yeah.
And the problem that we've got with social media is that people will put out a lot of stuff out there and don't recognize, you know, some of the stuff they put out there are data analytics that people collect, and so, you know, if I can, you know, just a responsibility. Keep those you know, things that are near and dear to your heart. Keep them private.
Yeah.
You don't have to put everything out there on social media.
Personal information. Just keep that to yourself.
Keep it to yourself.
Yeah.
But you can find me on Facebook and Instagram. You just search Barry Brinegar, and I'm going to pop up there on several platforms. I'm on LinkedIn too, but that's, you know, for me, I love connecting with people in the industry, and I mean, I connect with them on, you know, like with you guys, we connect with each other on Instagram, and then of course love podcasting. I think podcasting is such a great way of getting your message out there and connecting with the audience. And you know, you talked about earlier, how can I connect with that audience that I'm missing? You know, predominantly, you know, we're a bunch of guys, and you know, a bunch of guys listen to us. How do we connect with that female market? And we're still trying to crack that. You know, but I think the important part is what I see some other brands doing is bringing in the young folks like Maya, you know, with our social media person. She talks the talk that those younger folks are listening to.
Right.
Super important.
We don't do that, Matt. You're young, but you're not that young.
I am an old soul, let me tell you.
Oh, man. So, Matt, final thoughts before we wrap it up tonight.
This has been a treat. Barry, always great to see you, and super great to have you back on the show. Mark and I have actually talked a couple different times. Just curious what you've been up to. With the rebranding, we've seen so much coming out. So great to sit down and hear right from you what's going on with RD1 Spirits and the taste through the new line. And we're just super appreciative of everything you brought for us tonight, and to see it happening here in Lexington. And I noticed right on the front of your bottles, it says Lexington, Kentucky. So big old throwback right here to the hometown.
Yeah.
So you're a great advocate for not only RD1 Spirits, for the bourbon industry, but also for our hometown of Lexington. And we really appreciate it.
Thank you.
Always great to catch up with you.
That's awesome. Thanks.
Yeah. Barry, final thoughts before we wrap it up?
Well, final thoughts are, you know, the highs aren't as high as you think they are. The lows aren't as low as you think they are. And you know, if you just enjoy life and reach out to your neighbor and, you know, help lift them up when they need to be, the world's going to be a better place.
That's very well said. And I'm just going to wrap it up and say, Barry, you are one of my favorite people in the bourbon industry, man. I'm just going to say that straight up. I always have a good time when I get to see you and talk to you. You're very genuine. You're very down to earth, and what you're doing with the brand is great. You work very hard to promote it, but you're a great advocate, not just for the brand, but for bourbon in general. And you're a good person. I mean, there's no question about it, man. So I'm always happy to get to spend time with you. So thanks for coming and hanging out with us tonight. We've really enjoyed it. Thanks for bringing these wonderful expressions. And I will be heading to Liquor Barn tomorrow. Damn it, unfortunately now, to buy some bottles because that was really good. That's probably my favorite pour of the night right there, that straight bourbon that was finished with the American and French oak. So I'm going to have to pick up some other bottles too. So, but with that said, we want to thank all of our sponsors. Of course, we appreciate everything they do for us, and thank all of our listeners as well. We appreciate you guys hanging out with us and spending time, whatever time of day it is that you've decided to spend with us. We appreciate your listenership. If you have any questions, please feel free to reach out to us. You can email us at thebourbonlife@gmail.com. You can also reach out to us on Facebook or Instagram. Send us a direct message. We'd be happy to respond to you guys. With that said, I'm going to wrap it up. Send us home with our tagline, which is, may your glasses always be full, and may you keep on living the bourbon life.
Thank you for joining us for this week's episode of the Bourbon Life Podcast. Our mission at the Bourbon Life is simple: to share our passion for all things bourbon with you every week. And we'd really love to hear your thoughts on how we're doing. You can find us on Instagram and Facebook at The Bourbon Life. You can also contact us by email at thebourbonlife@gmail.com. And you can always find us on your favorite podcast platform. If you have a moment, we'd love it if you would rate us and give us a review. So until next week, we hope your glass is always full and that you keep on living the Bourbon Life.